I turned 75 eating dinner alone, while my family used my money to enjoy a vacation without me. That birthday was supposed to be special, one I'd remember forever. They promised me something I hadn't had in years. A little joy, some warmth, and the chance to feel valued again. I got dressed that morning. I cooked a full meal. I waited. But what happened that day changed how I saw everyone around me. Yes, I'm getting older. But I'm not blind, and I'm certainly not helpless. Before I dive into the story, thank you for being here and listening to me speak from the heart. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love hearing from you. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It means more than you know. Now let me tell you what really happened. I'd been looking forward to that trip for months. Back in February, my son Michael told me they were planning something special for my 75th. A real getaway, he said. Somewhere warm. Just pack your nice clothes, Mama. We've got everything else. I was so excited I nearly dropped my coffee. I hadn't been anywhere besides the drugstore or church in years. Not since my husband passed. I hadn't seen a beach since before he died. When I asked about the cost, Michael brushed it off. Didn't you work your whole life? You deserve this. We'll take care of it. A week later, he asked to use my credit card to lock in the group tickets. I hesitated for a moment, but in the end I trusted him. I handed it over without too many questions. He said we'd be leaving in late April or early May. When April came and went, I asked again about the dates. We're just sorting out the schedule, he told me. It'll be right around your birthday, promise? And I believed him. I even bought a new suitcase, purple on sale. I left the tag on and kept it by the front door. I packed it slowly over 2 weeks. Folded my favorite sundress with hibiscus flowers. My good sandals I wore to church. A sun hat I hadn't touched in 8 years. I even tucked in my husband's handkerchief, just to feel like he'd be there with me in spirit. But then Michael called the night before my birthday. He sounded rushed, like he was driving somewhere. Mama, I hate to say it, but we've got to push the trip back a bit, he said. My heart sank. How long? I asked. Not long. Just a couple more weeks. We're dealing with some scheduling stuff. Okay, I said, but I'll see you tomorrow for dinner, right? There was a pause. Of course, he replied. We'll stop by for sure. That was all I needed. I pretended it didn't bother me. After all, plans change. Life gets busy. So on the morning of my 75th birthday, I got up early and turned on my gospel playlist. I brewed fresh coffee and started cooking. Fried chicken, candied yams, macaroni and cheese, green beans with smoked turkey. I even baked a sweet potato pie from scratch and used real vanilla this time, not the imitation kind. I pulled out the good china from the high shelf, the set with gold trim I only use for holidays. I set the table for 5, me, Michael, his wife Jessica, their daughter Layla, and maybe Marcus from next door if they brought him a plate. I wore the blue floral dress my late husband always said made me look 10 years younger. I curled my hair and put on a little lipstick. I lit the tall candles I usually save for Easter. The house smelled like home. By 5 o'clock I was ready. By 6 I started to worry. By 7 I'd reheated the food twice. By 8 I gave up checking the window. By 9 I sat alone at the table. The candles had burned halfway down. The food was cold. My lipstick had faded. I looked at the empty seats in front of me and tried to convince myself. Maybe something happened. Maybe they lost track of time. Maybe Layla got sick. Maybe the car wouldn't start. Maybe someone's phone died. But deep down I knew no one was coming. My hand shook as I lifted my fork. The food didn't taste the same anymore. I took a few bites, then pushed the plate away and leaned my elbows on the table. I looked at the birthday card I'd bought myself the week before at the dollar store. It was covered in pink glitter and said, "You're still glowing." I thought it was cute when I bought it. Now it just felt cruel. That's when I cried, not loudly, just soft, slow tears. The kind that slip out after you've held them in too long. My shoulders trembled. I wiped my face on the edge of the tablecloth and sat in the quiet, letting it hurt. No one called. No texts. Not even a, "Happy birthday, Mama." Around 10:30 I wrapped the pie in foil and put everything in the fridge. I blew out the candles, changed into my nightgown and sat on the edge of the bed. My eyes drifted to the purple suitcase still sitting by the door, packed and waiting. I turned off the light and eased into bed, the pain in my knees sharper than usual. I stared at the ceiling fan as it spun gently. Its soft were the only sound in the room. I folded my hands over my stomach and whispered, maybe they just forgot. I wanted to believe that. But deep down I knew better. They hadn't forgotten. They just didn't come. The morning after my 75th birthday I woke up to a house so still it felt hollow. Not quiet in a peaceful way, quiet in a way that pressed down on your chest. I sat on the edge of the bed for what felt like forever, just staring at that little purple suitcase I'd packed and repacked for weeks. The tag still hung from the handle. A part of me still clung to the hope that the trip was simply delayed like Michael had said. Maybe it really would happen, just not yet. Maybe I just needed to be patient. I went through the motions, brushed my teeth, tied my scarf the way I always do, shuffled into the kitchen in my slippers, but everything felt heavy, like I was wading through wet cement. I made myself a cup of tea but didn't drink it. Opened the fridge, looked at the pie, closed it again. I couldn't bring myself to reheat anything. The dishes from last night were still piled in the sink, untouched. I left them there. I wrapped myself in my old knitted shawl, the one Frank gave me before he passed. It still carried a faint scent of cedar and lavender. I sat on the couch, staring at the floor while the wall clock ticked on. Noon came and went. Still no calls, no texts, not even a simple, "Sorry we missed you, Mama." I held on to a sliver of hope that maybe they'd reach out today. Maybe they got the date mixed up. Then 3 soft knocks came at the door. I stood up slowly and peeked through the curtain. It was Marcus. That sweet boy. He lived 2 doors down and always looked out for me. Polite, respectful. His grandma raised him right. I opened the door and he smiled, holding a plastic grocery bag. "Got that lemon dish soap you mentioned, Miss D," he said. "Oh, bless your heart," I replied, stepping aside. "Come on in, baby." He set the bag down on the counter. I was about to ask if he wanted tea when he noticed my phone sitting on the table. "Still having trouble with your apps?" he asked, picking it up. I nodded. "It keeps freezing. You know how I am with that thing. I press one wrong button and everything disappears." He chuckled. "Let me take a look." He sat at the kitchen table, swiping through settings while I wiped the counter just to keep my hands busy. Then he paused. "Miss D," he said gently, "did you say your son was planning a birthday trip for you?" I turned toward him. "Yes," I said. "He told me it was going to be a family vacation, but the night before my birthday he called and said it was postponed." He hesitated, then glanced down at his phone. "I didn't mean to snoop," he said, "but I follow your granddaughter, Tiana, on Instagram." My brow furrowed. "Okay." He turned his phone around to show me. And there it was, clear as day. A photo of a beach with white sand and bright blue water, and right in the middle my family. My son Michael. His wife Jessica. Little Layla. All wearing matching shirts that said, "Win Family Vacation." They were tanned, smiling, holding fruity drinks, and posing in front of a giant resort pool. The caption read, "Much needed reset in family, no drama, just sunshine." It had been posted the night before. My birthday. I stared at the photo, frozen. My mouth opened but no words came out. I slowly reached for Marcus's phone, zooming in. It wasn't a quick getaway. It was a full-blown vacation. Fancy dinners, luxury hotels, spa days. I scrolled to the next photo. Jessica was twirling in a sundress with a glass of champagne. Then Michael laughing with a cigar. Layla showing off a new gold bracelet. I kept scrolling, picture after picture, but not a single mention of me. Not one. Marcus sat quietly. I could see he didn't know what to say. I set the phone down and tried to steady my breathing. "They told me it was postponed," I whispered. "Said we'd reschedule. Said they'd come by for dinner." I felt the sting before the tears came. I blinked fast, trying to hold them back, but it didn't help. My shoulders started to shake. I pressed both palms flat on the table. "They left me," I said. "They really left me." Marcus stood and knelt beside me. His voice was soft. "I'm so sorry, Miss D. Thought you knew. If I had known." "It's not your fault, baby," I said, wiping my cheeks. "It's mine, for believing them." He didn't try to fix it. He didn't say anything else. He just stayed. And that, somehow, made it hurt even more. Because the one person who didn't owe me a thing was the one who stayed. While the people I raised, clothed, fed, left me behind like I didn't matter. After he left, I sat there in the silence. But something inside me shifted. I needed answers. I needed to see the full truth. I turned on my old computer, the one I hadn't touched in weeks, and logged into my email. Michael had always told me not to bother with it. Said he handled all the bookings, all the bills. But I still remembered one password, and that was enough. I typed the word reservation into the search bar. The very first email made my heart drop. It was from a luxury resort in Cancun. A booking confirmation. 1 full week. Ocean view suite. Spa upgrades. All prepaid. The billing address? Under the names Dolores and Gwyn. The credit card? The same card Michael asked to hold for emergencies, just last month. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling, stomach twisting. They hadn't simply forgotten about me. No, they used me. They lied to my face, took the vacation I was promised, toasted fruity drinks to a new chapter, and left me crying alone over cold sweet potato pie. I closed the laptop, pushed my chair back and stood up. I walked to the hallway mirror and stared at myself, not as a fragile old woman, but as a mother who had been taken for granted. A woman who had been quiet for far too long. And in that moment something deep inside me shifted. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even bitterness. It was clarity. After reading that email, everything inside me just went still. Not numb. So, like my spirit sat down to rest and catch its breath. I didn't call Michael. I didn't text. I didn't slam cabinets or throw anything. That's not who I am. I just stood in that hallway, staring at my reflection in the same mirror Frank hung all those years ago when we first moved in. I looked long and hard, at the wrinkles, the freckles, the old laugh lines that had settled into something a little sadder. But I didn't see weakness. I saw a woman fully awake. The next afternoon the phone rang. It was Jessica. Her voice was sugary sweet, like nothing had happened. "We're back in town. So sorry we missed your big day, Miss D." Like she hadn't had my number all week. Then she added, "Michael's gonna come by and bring you something nice." I didn't argue. I just said, "All right," and hung up. Sure enough, Michael showed up around 6. Didn't knock, just walked in like he used to when he was 17. I was in the kitchen folding dish towels. Didn't even look up. "Hey mama," he said like he'd just come back from the store. He placed a white paper bag on the table. "We brought you this." Inside was a slice of red velvet cake from some fancy bakery, wrapped like it belonged at a wedding, not a birthday. I looked at the cake. Then I looked at him. "That what you brought back from Mexico?" I asked. His smile faded for just a second. Then he gave a little laugh. "Oh, so you saw the pictures?" "I saw everything," I said. "The drinks. Oh. The shirts. The bracelet on Layla's wrist. The steak dinner. All of it. On my birthday." He scratched his neck and shrugged. "Mama, we didn't think you'd want to travel that far. You get tired easy." I stared at him. "That's not what you said. You told me it was postponed." "Plans changed last minute," he muttered. "It wasn't that deep." I stepped around the counter slowly, keeping my voice steady even though I felt fire in my chest. "You used my credit card, Michael. You paid for the whole trip in my name." He jerked his head back like I'd slapped him. "What? It wasn't like that. You gave me the card for emergencies. I figured once you saw how happy we were, you'd be okay with it." "You figured," I repeated. "You figured your mama, who cooked a full dinner and set out the good dishes in her best dress on her 75th birthday, would be just fine being lied to, excluded, and made to pay for it?" Now he looked annoyed. Defensive. "Mama, it was just one birthday. You've had 74 others." My hands trembled. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. "One birthday," I said. "It was the first one I've spent without your father. And I thought, just maybe, you'd want to spend it with me, not away from me." He groaned and slumped into the chair like I was exhausting him. "You're being dramatic," he said. I blinked, stunned. "Dramatic?" "Yes," he snapped. "It's not like we left you with nothing. You had food. You're always saying you don't need much. So why is this suddenly some big emergency?" I stepped back. My heart was pounding. I thought about all the nights I held him during fevers, how I skipped meals so he could eat, how I pawned my wedding ring once to pay for his braces, how I stayed up praying every time he came home late. I thought about how he'd fall asleep on my lap during storms, calling me his favorite person in the world. And now here he was, telling me my pain was too much trouble. I sat down across from him and looked straight into his eyes. "I'm your mother, Michael. Not your wallet." He didn't say a word. And I didn't cry, not this time. Not in front of him. I just stood up, walked to the pantry and grabbed the broom. "You can go now," I said softly. He looked up, caught off guard. "Mama, I need to sweep," I said. "And I don't like sweeping around things that don't belong in my house." He stood slowly. For a second he looked like he might say something. But he didn't. He just left. That night I sat on the porch under the string lights Frank and I had hung up years ago. I rocked gently in my chair with a blanket around my shoulders. I didn't cry. But I didn't smile either. I just let the cool air brush against my face and listened to the crickets, their little songs offering a kind of quiet mercy. I still loved my son, of course I did, but I couldn't unsee what I had seen and I couldn't pretend the hurt wasn't real. I thought that might be the end of it, that maybe we'd talk it out one day, smooth it over like mothers always hope they can. But something was coming that would strip away the rest of my illusions. And this time I wouldn't look away. I wasn't out looking for trouble. I just needed a little help. A few weeks after that argument with Michael, things started to get tight, tighter than usual. Groceries were running low and the power bill came in higher than expected. I didn't panic. I've been through leaner times. I just figured I'd borrow a little just to bridge the gap until my check came. Marcus, bless that boy, told me about someone at the community center. A retired judge who volunteered her time helping older women like me get access to legal advice and support. "Judge Nora Blake," he said. "Sharp as a tack. No games. You'll like her, Miss D." I don't like bothering people, but something told me I needed to make the call. She came by the next afternoon. Tall woman, silver-gray hair in a twist-out, eyes that missed nothing. She had that no-nonsense voice, but it carried kindness in it. She wore simple slacks and flat shoes, and carried a big canvas tote full of folders. "Miss Wynne," she said, shaking my hand with a firm grip, "I hear you needed some assistance." I motioned to the table. "Just a little guidance," I said. "I might need to borrow a few dollars to tide me over. I'm not behind or anything. Just a rough month." He gave me a long, steady look. "Do you mind if I ask, don't you have a retirement account? Any savings?" I nodded slowly. I do. But my son's been helping me manage it." She set her bag down. "And how involved are you in that management?" I hesitated. "He's got the logins. Pays the bills. Said he'd take care of the boring stuff so I wouldn't have to stress." Nora leaned forward. "Would you mind pulling up your online banking? Just to double-check that everything's where it's supposed to be." I didn't want to embarrass myself, but something in her tone told me I should listen. So I pulled out my old laptop and let her sit beside me. Took a couple tries, but I got in. And before she even said anything, I saw it. The balance didn't look right. She scrolled quietly. I sat there, heart thudding, watching her eyes move. When she finally turned to me, she didn't sound like a judge. She sounded like a woman who had seen this kind of heartbreak too many times. "Miss Wynne," she said gently, "your account's been drained over the past year. We're talking multiple withdrawals. Thousands of dollars. All moved into a secondary account." I went cold. That must be Michael's. He's been the one handling things. She tapped her finger on the screen. "Look at these. Jewelry store, resort charges, electronics, spa payments, even consulting services, but none of them tied to a business account. All funneled into his personal one. This isn't help, Linda. This is misuse." My throat tightened. "He's been under stress. He told me money's been tight. He's trying to build something." Nora gave me a look. Not unkind, not judgmental, just honest. "Linda," she said, calling me by my first name for the first time, "you are not a bank. And you are not here to be bled dry while smiling through it." My lips trembled. "But he's my son. And you're his mother," she said quietly. "And you deserve better than this. You worked hard. You raised him. That money isn't something you owe him. It was meant to support you." I sat frozen, my hands clenched together so tight they hurt. Nora gently closed the laptop. "You asked for help. I can help, but only if you're ready to stop letting your kindness be used against you." I didn't say anything right away. I looked down at the old kitchen tile and thought about the decades I'd spent scrubbing those floors. How I saved every grocery receipt. How I skipped hair appointments so Michael could have new football cleats. How I never let him see how scared I was when we were close to broke. I thought about waiting alone on my birthday. About the suitcase. About the palm trees and champagne. And how I paid for it all. "I don't want to hurt him," I whispered. "You're not," she said softly. He's already hurting you. We didn't finish that conversation. Not that day. I needed time. Nora understood. She left her card and told me to call if anything else came up. It didn't take long. The very next week, Michael showed up at my door again, all smiles. "Hey mama," he said, walking in like nothing had happened. "Got some good news, I found a house. Real fixer-upper, lots of potential. I want to make an offer before someone else snatches it." I raised my eyebrows. Oh. He made himself at home, sitting down at the table like he still owned the place. "I need 40 grand for the down payment," he said, grinning. "I figured maybe you could front me a portion of the inheritance now. You know, before it's too late." And that was it. Felt like the air got punched right out of my chest. I just stared at him. Michael didn't even blink. He really, truly believed he was entitled to the life I had built. "I don't have that kind of money," I said quietly. He leaned back like I'd just insulted him. "Sure you do. You just don't want to help." My voice stayed flat. "You've been helping yourself, Michael. I've seen the charges." That wiped the smirk off his face. "Excuse me. I saw everything. The resort charges. The jewelry. The electronics. You've been draining my account." He stood up fast. "You went through my stuff?" "No," I said, calm as can be. "I went through mine." He scoffed. "So what now? You cutting me off? After everything I've done for you? You mean used me?" I replied, standing up too. "You lied to me. Left me alone on my birthday. While you danced and drank on my dime." He snapped. "You do this and you'll be all alone. Don't call me when you need something." I walked over to the counter, picked up Judge Nora's business card and looked him straight in the eye. "I won't." He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the glass rattled. I stood there for a while, letting the silence settle around me again. Then I picked up the phone and called the woman who helped me see things clearly. "Nora," I said, "let's get started." It didn't take long for the ripple to hit him. The very same week Nora helped me transfer my accounts, lock my credit and revoke Michael's access. The calls started. Missed call after missed call. Notification after notification. Then came the text, short, sharp. "Mama, we need to talk. Why is my card getting declined? Call me now. This is serious." I didn't respond. I didn't have to. Nora told me it would take a few days to get all the paperwork finalized, but once those accounts were frozen he'd feel it, and he did. I imagined him in a checkout line somewhere, swiping my card and being told it was no longer valid. I imagined the confusion, the rising voice, the panic when his bank login failed too. For the first time in years I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. But freedom of course always comes with a knock. Saturday morning around 10 I was folding laundry when I heard the heavy stomp of shoes on my front porch. Before I could even get to the curtain the door flew open. Michael stormed in, loud and boiling. "What the hell is going on?" I didn't flinch. I'd practiced this moment over and over in my head since I made the call to Nora. I met his eyes and said, "You'll have to be more specific." He threw his hands up. "My business account's frozen. My bank app's locked. The card I was using for utilities just got declined at the gas station. Are you trying to humiliate me, Mama?" "I'm trying to protect what's mine," I said calmly. He stepped closer, eyes narrowed. "You're really doing this? To your own son?" "No," I said quietly. "You already did this. To me." That's when Jessica walked in behind him. She didn't look like herself. No heels. No tight blouse. No lip gloss. Just a wrinkled hoodie and a jaw clenched so tight I thought she might crack. "I told you this was gonna blow up," she muttered to him, loud enough for me to hear. Michael turned. "Stay out of it." "No," I cut in. "Let her talk. I'd love to know what stories you both told yourselves while sipping margaritas on my birthday, with my money." Jessica folded her arms and looked away. Michael didn't even blink. "We needed help, Mama. The business wasn't taking off. You always said your money was for family." "My money was for emergencies," I said, stepping forward. "Groceries. Medicine. Maybe a grandchild's tuition. Not resort suites, designer bags, and steak dinners I wasn't even invited to. We were going to pay it back. When I asked. When you were gone after the funeral, when the house got sold." His voice caught. "Don't say that," he muttered. "Why not?" I snapped, feeling the fire rise again. "You've already been spending like I'm dead." Silence dropped like a curtain. Thick. Heavy. Uncomfortable. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed, low and bitter. You've always made things harder than they needed to be. And you never kept your promises. I didn't even blink. You promised you'd show up on my birthday. Promised we'd take that trip. Promised I'd never feel forgotten. Something shifted in his eyes. Not guilt. Not shame. Just realization. He finally knew I wasn't bending. So what now? He asked. You're just cutting us off for good? I didn't say a word. I walked to the dining room, pulled a letter from the drawer and laid it on the table. What's this? He asked. My new will, I said simply. Signed last week. Every last penny I have is going to a women's shelter downtown. The one that helps older women start over after being used by the people they love. He blinked like he didn't hear me right. You're cutting me out of your will? You cut yourself out, I said, the moment you looked me in the eye and saw a resource instead of your mother. Jessica started crying then quietly. She grabbed her purse and backed toward the door. I didn't know it went that deep, she whispered. I thought you were okay with it. Michael said you knew. I didn't say a thing. Sometimes silence tells the truth louder than words ever could. Jessica didn't say another word, just slipped out the door. Michael stood there for a second longer, his jaw clenched, maybe trying to find some last-minute excuse that would win me back. But there was nothing left to say. Eventually he turned and left, slamming the door so hard the picture of Frank on the shelf shook. I walked over, straightened the frame and sat down at the table. I looked at the half-folded laundry and let out a soft laugh. Not because anything was funny but because that sound, it felt like strength returning to my bones after a long, heavy silence. For so many years I thought love was supposed to look like sacrifice. That being a good mother meant giving until there was nothing left in me. But I know better now. I'm not empty. I'm not confused. I'm just done being the foundation for other people to build castles on. Castles I was never even invited into. And for the first time in decades I looked around my house and felt something strange but good. The quiet belonged to me again. A full year passed. Quietly. Fully. Like spring pushing up through frozen dirt. I won't pretend every day was easy. There were mornings I'd sit by the window wondering if maybe I was too harsh. Wondering if I should have picked up the phone when they called again. But then I'd remember that photo of them in Cancun. I'd remember how Michael asked for an advance on my death. I'd remember the ache of sitting alone at the table in my best dress, waiting for people who never came. So no, I didn't answer the calls. Not when Michael called 4 weeks after I locked everything down. Not when he sent that one dry text with no punctuation. So it's like that. Yes, it was like that. Because the moment I took back control of my money, my name, my future, it felt like pulling myself out of a well I hadn't even realized I was drowning in. With Nora's help we got it all in place. We filed paperwork to move everything out of Michael's reach. We revoked every permission he'd given himself. We flagged suspicious charges. Some were even refunded. Nora also connected me with a financial advisor who spoke to me like a woman who knew the value of every dollar she ever earned, not like someone too old to understand. We rewrote my will too. All my remaining funds, my bonds, the house. It was all designated to a nonprofit that supports elderly women who've been silenced or taken advantage of by family. Only Marcus and Nora knew. And honestly that was enough. Marcus came by every week after it all happened. Sometimes just to bring bread. Other times to fix my remote or change a light bulb. But mostly he sat and listened. Listened while I told stories about Frank, about sewing prom dresses for half the block, about who I used to be. He never asked for anything. Never expected anything. That's why, on my 76th birthday, I didn't set the table for ghosts. Instead, I reserved the little event room at the community center. Nothing fancy, just real food. Deviled eggs. Fried chicken. Red beans. Lemon-glazed pound cake. I wore a golden dress that made me feel warm and whole again. And I only invited the people who had truly shown up when I needed them most. Marcus arrived first, holding a Bluetooth speaker playing Mahalia Jackson and carrying 24 fresh flowers. Then Nora showed up, dressed sharp as ever, that wise smile never leaving her face. Soon the women from the foundation arrived. All of them walked in proud. Some with canes, some with grandkids, but all of them standing tall in their own way. We ate. We laughed. We danced a little. We shared stories and slices of pound cake. And then Layla came. She didn't make a scene. No flashy entrance. She just stepped inside, quiet as a whisper, holding a birthday card. No jewelry. No perfect hair. Just nervous eyes and a hunched posture. "Grandma," she said softly from the doorway. "I didn't know what they were doing. I really didn't. Dad said you didn't want to travel. That you were tired." I believed him. But later I saw the receipts. I saw the truth. "I'm so sorry." I looked at her. This girl, my only granddaughter, who used to stand on a stool in my kitchen with both hands in a bowl of grits. "It hurt, baby," I said with a slow nod. "Yes, it did." She took a step forward. "Can I stay?" I didn't answer right away. I just reached behind me, picked up a clean plate, handed it to her and said, "Go on now. Get yourself a piece of that pound cake before Nora eats the last slice." She gave me a shaky but thankful smile and joined the group. But I didn't hug her. Not yet. Some things, even love, have to be earned back. Marcus offered to drive me home that evening. As the sun dipped low over the rooftops, I sat in the passenger seat with the flowers in my lap. "Was today better than last year?" he asked. I looked out the window, the breeze still warm on my skin. "Not better," I said. I owned it. When we got home, I stood out on the porch for a while. That soft wind felt like a blessing. I looked down the street, thought about how far I'd come. Then I went inside, slipped into my robe and made a cup of tea. I didn't check my phone. I didn't look for a message from Michael. I just sat alone at my kitchen table and smiled. Not because I was happy, but because I was whole. I love them. I always will. But now, I'm finally loving me too.